Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today we're here with episode 85, and guys, we've done it. We've made it. We've arrived to fight week. Canelo Alvarez, Terrence Crawford. It's finally here. We're so close. Just a couple days out. Saturday, live on Netflix from Las Vegas Allegiant Stadium. Like 60,000 people gonna be there probably, maybe more. Um, Undisputed Super Middleweight World Championship. That fight is very close, and it is potentially the biggest fight week of the decade, uh, especially when you throw in the fact that we've got two upcoming cards this week just for the fight week, so we're going to talk about those, of course. But before we do that, we're going to talk about this past weekend's action. Once we get to Friday, we'll do a big deep dive, and I'll give you my final prediction for Canelo vs. Crawford, as well as Lewis Crocker, Patty Donovan this weekend. What else? We got UFC Noche, and then how about I don't mention Naoya Inoue, MJ Akhmadaliev finally as well. So two undisputed championships this weekend. Three of the top 10 pound-for-pound fighters in the world are in action. Still no broadcast details on Inoue Akhmadaliev, so don't know where we're going to be able to watch it. But let's talk about the fights this weekend. Actually, before we do that, let's talk about, it's going to be the title of this episode, Mike Tyson, Floyd Mayweather. Yes, I'm not kidding. Apparently, according to TMZ, they have signed an exhibition fight for the spring of 2026. It is locked and loaded and ready to go. And I'm going to be honest, when I heard this, when I saw the TMZ report, I said, that's BS. You know, I just didn't believe it. I was like, they're just saying stuff, and maybe this is something that's being talked about, but I don't know. You know, I don't really believe it yet. And then I see everybody else picking it up, and I see Ring Magazine and ESPN posting it, and I'm like, whoa, maybe this is not just like a TMZ story. And then I find out that they have quotes, and both guys have come out and officially announced it and talked about it. And I'm like, are we serious? Now, let me say this. Do I think this fight happens? No, I don't. I don't think this fight's actually going to happen. And I'll tell you that because no date, no venue, no rules, and more than that, no details at all on the promoter or broadcast. I mean, literally the poster that came out, the only thing it has is Mayweather Promotions and a Mike Tyson logo, and it says worldwide broadcast in 2026. Like, that does not sound legit at all. So maybe they've worked out a deal or something. Of course, I'm sure that somebody has come up to them and said, "Hey, we want to put this fight on." As for my thoughts on the fight, I think it's a bad idea. Floyd Mayweather's been doing these exhibitions, so I don't think that he's necessarily in a spot where it's dangerous for him to keep on fighting. He is fighting a guy a lot bigger than him, but I don't think that really matters. Mike Tyson, as we saw against Jake Paul, is just not at all what he used to be. And can you really blame him? By the time this fight does roll around, he will be 60 years old. And, I mean, it's like, dude, he's not supposed to be doing all this when he's that age. And because of how immobile he is and how Floyd Mayweather is 48 and he's still in really good shape, so he'll be able to go the 8 2-minute rounds or whatever ends up being, no sweat in the park. Obviously, he needs to not get hit by Mike Tyson, but he's Floyd Mayweather. He's not going to get hit by him. So, I mean, I'm guessing this is going to be one of those exhibitions that isn't scored. So I would say that Mayweather, if it was scored, Mayweather wins pretty much every round. If this falls apart, I don't care. I will watch it if it happens, and I'm curious how good it'd be in terms of like how big of a show it'd be. I doubt this is something that's like a Netflix product. I have to think that this is some BS because Floyd Mayweather's been doing this for the last few years, and the big guys have kind of just left it alone. When he fought Logan Paul, that was a big show, right? They had that on a Showtime pay-per-view, and his last fight was not a big show. It was like in Mexico. And it was a pretty not a big production. So I think that if he is going to fight again, it's not going to be this huge event on Netflix or pay-per-view or anything. So, or actually, it probably will be on pay-per-view. Mike Tyson maybe will bring it in a little bit more for some, DAZN may want to pick it up. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's a stupid fight. I think it's really bad for Mike Tyson to continue fighting, and I doubt that it happens. But if it does, all right, I'll watch it, I guess. But on to some real new fight being announced. It's official. Joseph Parker and Fabio Wardley are going to meet at the O2 Arena next month, October 25th. They have their press conference tomorrow. And, this is a really, really good fight. WBO interim champion versus WBA interim champion. So the winner of this is going to be fighting Usyk next. I did just see that Ajit Kabayel has an announcement coming soon. He's going to have his homecoming in Germany, I think, at the end of this year. He's obviously also in line, but I have to think that whoever comes out on top of this is going to get the fight with Usyk next. I think that's going to be Parker. I'm very confident that he wins this fight, but Fabio Wardley has an equalizer. If you saw in the last fight, Justice Hooney was dominating him. And I think Joseph Parker's just a bit better than Justice Hooney. So I think the same would happen here, if not, and it's going to be worse than that. But Fabio Wardley is really, really powerful when he has one-punch knockout power. Like, we saw that against Justice Hooney. He literally showed, like, it only takes one punch. You can win every round against me, Deontay Wilder style, and I'm still going to knock you out. So I think there is still that possibility and that wild factor with Fabio Wardley. And it honestly kind of sucks that these two are fighting, because they are the two guys who will not turn down anybody, and they're also the two guys that everyone loves. Like, these are both the nice guys. Like, I want to see them both win, and I really don't want to see either of them lose. So, but hey, you know what? The best got to fight the best, and I think it's a tremendous fight. They also announced the undercard for this. It's going to be Denzel Bentley versus Andrew Saavedra for the WBO middleweight title eliminator. I think that's a really fun night, really fun fight. Saavedra was in a Fight of the Year candidate last year, and Denzel Bentley is also always fun to watch. He hasn't fought in a minute, I think, since December. So this will be good to get him back out there. I'm not sure if he wins this fight. I think it's competitive, but winner that's going to be mandatory for Janabek. You're also going to have Louis Edmondson versus Ezra Taylor on this card for the British light heavyweight championship. That's a tremendous fight. I thought Louis Edmondson was a little bit unlucky against Daniel Lappin, and I think Ezra Taylor is a really, really good prospect. So I think that he could beat Edmondson. So we'll see what happens, but that's a great fight. And then they also announced they've rebooked Royston Barney Smith versus Danny Quartermain, which is a really good battle of undefeated guys. Sugar Boy Royce stepping up. And yeah, I think that's a great fight. So really, really strong 4-fight card there. All of those are actually quite competitive. And, I'm very much excited for this event. I think it's going to be awesome. And well, just what a fight. So that's great. The downside, it's going to be on pay-per-view is what we're hearing. And this is just really frustrating because you see Turki Al-Sheikh, you see Dana White, the guys leading combat sports, moving away from the pay-per-view model. And part of this is making me wonder, like, this is not a fight that needs to be on pay-per-view. Part of me kind of wonders if DAZN is like, oh, Turkey's taking away pay-per-view. Like, we're about to have Benavidez Yard, this insanely stacked card, and we're not going to charge anything for it. Eubank Ben 2, the Inoue card in December. All these huge fights, and we're not going to get any pay-per-view fees for that. We need our other guys, our singular promoters. We need Queensberry. We need Matchroom. We need Golden Boy. We need Misfits. We need them to put on pay-per-view cards so that we can still get our pay-per-view money in. And so I think that that's what we're going to see happen here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see more unnecessary fights get put on pay-per-view. I think it's a great fight. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think that it's a pay-per-view fight. So who knows? Hopefully they change their mind, or at least it's not terribly expensive, but it does just kind of suck when you think about we're moving away from pay-per-view, but it's still there. I mean, PBC is still doing it, and if you look at that day on October 25th, we're going to have this, Fundora Thurman, and UFC 321. So a fantastic day for combat sports fans, but also a very expensive day for combat sports fans, where we're going to have to pay a lot because that's 3 pay-per-views in one day. Yeah, not the best. But moving on from there, let's head on over and let's talk about some of our fights that we had this week. And we had a lot of great events. And we'll start with UFC and what I think could have been the card of the year for UFC. It was spectacular. 13 fights, 11 of them were finishes. I think that's the right number. It was an awesome event. Main event, Nassourdine Imavov defeating Caio Borralho by unanimous decision. So he's now going to be mandatory for Khamzat Chimaev. Do I think Khamzat beats him? Absolutely. I think he does. I don't really think that Imavov has much of a chance in this fight, but you've always got a little bit of a chance, and he is the number 1 contender, so I do believe that he should get that shot next. I don't think it's the winner of RDR and Fluffy. I think it's Imavov who gets the next title shot, and I think that he should. As for the fight itself, a little bit underwhelming. I was hoping it was going to be a crazy war and all this and that. I thought that it was okay. I just thought that Imavov was of a higher level than Caio. And, they were neither of them wanted to do anything too crazy. And Imavov was able to keep his fight at a very comfortable pace for himself. and didn't have to do anything risky, and because of that was able to get out of there very clean with a good and honestly largely easy win. I think the fight was a little bit more competitive than the cards had it. I had it, I think 49-46, maybe 48-47. There's no doubt in my mind that Imavov won that fight. One of the judges had it like 50-45, but I can see how you give him every round. I think there was at least 1 or 2 rounds that Kaio took, but it's hard to say. Those rounds were pretty close. Also on that card, big upset in the co-main event as Benoit Saint Denis submitted Mauricio Rufy. He was dominant over him, and it really just showed like, wow, like Rufy just has no grappling game. And it's crazy to think how many of these UFC fighters that are such talented strikers aren't well rounded. And it was a phenomenal performance from BSD. He was like, that was one of the most dominant wrestling performances I've seen in a while. Obviously, Khamzat over DDP was unbelievable, but this was really good too. And you know, he got the second round submission. It didn't even look like it was that tight of a choke. He's just, I don't know, man. Like, that, it was really impressive, and so he's gonna hold on to his ranking. The Fighting Nerds went 0-2 last night or this weekend, so now everyone is kind of looking towards John Silva and being like, dude, is he gonna lose too? Like, they've all kind of at the start of this year, undefeated team. Now 3 of the 4 have lost, and sure, Carlos Prates has come back since then, and they're still all really good fighters. This is not the end of the Fighting Nerds, but it is crazy to think that they were this unstoppable force, it seems, and now they've been figured out. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. I do think that Diego Lopez likely beats John Silva, but yeah, man, we're just gonna have to see what goes down this upcoming Saturday. Also on that card, there's just so many stoppages. Modestas Bukauskas knocking out Paul Craig, sending him into retirement. Wild. Mason Jones, what a comeback against Bolaji Oki. Oki was, seemed that he was going to finish him in the first 2 minutes of the fight, and then Jones completely spins it around, and then he gets a second round finish himself. Axel Sola, third round finish over Reese McKee was brilliant. William Gomez with one of the only decision wins over the night. Umar Sy, first round TKO over Brenton Ribeiro. That was phenomenal. Ante DeLiha, phenomenal heavyweight debut. Huge finish. First round TKO over Marcin Tybur, who's ranked number 7. DeLiha, former PFL guy, and now he comes in here, teammate of Tom Aspinall, and then that was a very emotional win for him. Cal Fernandez, getting a TKO in round 1 over Harry Hardwick. That was some villain shit. He did that win completely by just kicking with the low legs, and he was doing it so easily. He was just throwing these kicks, and you could just see the redness on Hardwick's calves, and he was just like barely able to move, and Fernandez didn't have to try anything. He didn't have to risk anything because Hardwick couldn't move. I was like, oh my gosh, like he's taking his time, like he was toying with him. That was some really impressive stuff, and honestly some cold-hearted behavior. And then to see Hardwick get taken out in a wheelchair, that was just brutal. And then eventually he just folded from the pain. It was really that was cold. But Sam Patterson, first round TKO over Trey Waters, that was pretty crazy. Robert Brycek, crazy finish. Renat Fakhretdinov, first round knockout over Andreas Gustafsson, wild. And then Sam Hughes getting a second round submission over Shauna Bannon. She was very dominant as well. So really good card. I do genuinely think this could be in the running for the best events of the year. Just so many finishes, really entertaining fights, and yeah, it was definitely one for the history books. Also this weekend, Sugar Nunez defended his IBF super featherweight world title in his hometown in Sinaloa, Mexico, against Christopher Pitufo Diaz in what could be a fight of the year candidate. It was phenomenal. I think Pitufo was very unlucky on the cards. I do think this fight was a draw. That's how I scored it. I think that you could edge it either way. I think that Pitufo was getting the cleaner punches in most of the rounds. I had him winning 7 of the 5 rounds. However, he got dropped twice, and I think it was round number 7. Yeah, so it was a 10-7 round for Sugar Nunez, and that ultimately, I would say that lost him the fight, but the scorecards that the judges had were honestly kind of disgustingly wide. 2 of them had it 117, 109, means they only gave Pitufo 3 rounds, which is just ridiculous. So it does feel a little bit unfair. I'm not saying that he should have won the fight, but they should have been closer. It was a very competitive, right down the middle fight. And those 2 knockdowns really did cost him, though, on my card, because I think he would have won the fight if he hadn't gotten dropped. And even the first one, you can argue, kind of a slip. Second one was not. Second one was a clean knockdown. Even if he wasn't hurt by it, it was a clean knockdown. But yeah, I thought it was a phenomenal fight, and you have Emmanuel Navarrete there. He faces off with Sugar Nunez after. That's a great all-Mexican unification world title fight. Look, Top Rank is homeless. They don't have a broadcaster. They need to keep their guys active. put Emmanuel Navarrete versus Sugar Nunez end of the year in a big fight on DAZN. Let's make it happen, dude. That's a great, great fight. I know Navarrete does have the mandatory rematch with Charlie Suarez. Let's see if that comes to fruition. If not, I would love to see him and Sugar Nunez. I think that honestly, I wanted to see Navarrete Foster for the longest time, but now that we have two Mexican world champions here in the same division, it makes a lot of sense. You also have Ray Ford there for somebody who Sugar Nunez could fight, but I really like the Nunez-Navarrete matchup. Co-main event there, Pedro Guevara getting lucky with the draw against Alexis Molina. Molina was meant to be on the undercard. Obviously, Adrian Curiel was meant to fight Guevara. Curiel injured, I think. He just pulled out a couple days before. They get Molina on like a day or two's notice, and he steps up to a much higher level against a former world champion and may have beaten him. Came very, very close. It was a draw. I'm not mad at the draw. I actually had that on my card as well. But if I had to pick somebody to win that fight, it was Molina. So definitely not a great showing from Guevara at all in his comeback from the BAM fight. Yoeli Mosqueda, he's like top 10 ranked in the flyweight division. He got a 6th round knockout. And Hector Beltran Jr. as well with the 1st round knockout. So good card in Mexico. That was actually Matchroom's 2nd card of the day. They had another one of their international doubleheaders. Pat McCormack, dominant performance over Miguel Parra. Made him quit after the 9th round, and that was a WBA title eliminator. So, I mean, yeah, he's supposed to be a lot farther along, but, late debut, injuries, inactivity. But, hey, you know what? He's catching up now. And I don't think that it's time to push him into a world title fight. I think that even he knows that. He said, look, I want to get the other titles. I want to get British. I want to be Commonwealth. I want to be European champion. So, look, the fight to me is clear. Kona Walker, put it on Eubank versus Bentu. That is a absolute war. It's a tremendous battle. Two really, really all-action welterweights in the UK, both with Matchroom. I think that fight makes so much sense. So I would love to see that one next. And that's not rushing him too far, and I think he probably beats Kona Walker, as much as it pains me to say. Troy Williamson, though, co-main event, huge upset knockout over Mark Dickinson. The fight was phenomenal the whole way through, very competitive. And then once you get into the 9th round, he just drops Dickinson with a huge shot, and Dickinson gets up, and he's clearly still hurt. I think the stoppage was a little bit too early. As soon as they get going, Williamson hits him with 1-2 more shots, and it's clear that he's about to go down again, most likely. So I'm not mad at the ref stepping in because we know which way it was going, but may have jumped a bit too early. But huge performance from him there, big comeback in his career. So he's now the English champion at super middleweight, also with Dickinson coming in 5 pounds over, so he wouldn't have gotten to hold the belts anyways. But Sandy Ryan also came back on that card, got a dominant decision win over Jade Grierson, who's undefeated. So she's ready to just get right back into the mix. I like to see her versus Lauren Price. Now that Michaela Mayer's moving up to 154, let's just make that fight. I think Lauren Price beats her, but I mean, there's not a lot of other fights to make, and so why sit around? That's still a great war that you could have there. Leo Atang, 2nd fight, another 1st round knockout. Very, very good prospect there. Cameron Vaughn getting a very boring win over Raccoon Arce, who's a journeyman. This is just a run out. They want to get him in with Gavin Gwynn. He was there. They had a little smack talk. But, yeah, Cameron Vaughn, I really don't want to see him on the Eubank versus Ben undercards because I feel like this fight they could just go on a Matchroom card. He's just gonna kind of stink up the stadium. Like he's really just not an entertaining fighter. He's not exciting. And if you put him on a stadium fight where it's him in a fight that he's already had where he should have lost and is just not exciting and he's a little bit overhyped, I don't need to see that on a stadium pay-per-view card. Put that in, honestly, in an event like this, in like the co-main event. There's no need to put that on such a big card, but it is what it is. You also had Adam Maka's 2nd pro fight. He looked great. Another stoppage for him. TMA Ayton's 2nd fight. Great stoppage for her as well. So Maka, Ayton, and Atang, all their 2nd fights, all had big stoppage wins. And then you had Brad Casey kicking off the card with a decision win himself. So, but some really good prospects. I think it was a pretty fun show. A lot of knockouts, and I enjoyed it. You also had the return of Oscar Valdez against Ricky Medina. A little bit questionable decision there. I thought that it was a draw. Granted, I did not see the first 3 rounds of this fight. I heard that Valdez won those 3 rounds. That's what everyone was saying. So I just assumed, okay, well, he probably took those. Then I saw Medina take like the next 5 in a row, and I think Valdez had a good finish. So I'm assuming it probably should have been a draw. But some of the cards, one of them had it 100-90. That's just a blatant robbery. That is like to not give Medina a single round is very suspicious, I think. And yeah, I did not like that. But we also had Big news for the super middleweight division. Osleys Iglesias stopping Vladimir Shishkin in their IBF super middleweight title eliminator. So he is now coming for Canelo Alvarez. He's mandatory for him, and the IBF will order that fight. I don't think it's going to happen next. I think there's a lot of guys for him to fight. Christian and Billy's an in-house fight. He could fight him. He could fight Lester Martinez. Whoever wins that fight. You got Khamzat Shiraz there. You've got Jaime Munguia. You've got Armando Resendiz. You've got Diego Pacheco. You got so many other guys that are just so many good fights. But I thought it was a really, really good fight. Very dominant performance from Iglesias. Stops him in the 8th round, I believe. And Shishkin hadn't won a round. So I was really impressed with him in that fight. You Dimitri Asanu get a 3rd round knockout. John Arobio had a 3rd round knockout. He's obviously a top prospect. Avery Martin Duval himself had a 5th round knockout. Moreno Fendero had a 3rd round knockout. And White Sanford went the distance. But I had the Tiger shows, dude. They're always so fast because so many of the fighters just get knockouts. And they've got a really, really great crop of up-and-coming fighters. And Iglesias and Billy are leading that charge, and Iglesias is something else, dude. Like he's just such a monster, and he was patient. Like he wasn't just going crazy and going for the kill. Maybe a little bit too hasty in there, but nothing that cost him, just because he was so much bigger and better and stronger than Shishkin. But this was the toughest fight of his career, and it was a cakewalk for him. So excited to see him get into the mix. But you also had the return of Michael Mick Conlan in Dublin, Ireland. He stops Jack Bateson in the 4th round. Really, really good performance. I thought that it was a bit competitive in the 1st round. Then we see Conlan is just the better fighter, and he just is starting to work him out. And you're seeing, hey, this was a quality opponent. Is Mick Conlan going to be a world champion like Wasserman is saying? Absolutely not. But I do think that he can get into the mix and fight, Josh Warrington and Lee Wood one more time. Like just some of these older generation guys that are on their way out, have them retire against each other. That would be a war. Like Conlan versus Warrington is such a phenomenal fight. And seeing the Wood rematch, I would love to watch that as well. So he's got fights out there. And yeah, I was really impressed with him. And he shows like, dude, he's still got it to an extent. Again, don't put him in there with somebody that can really hurt him. Don't put him in there with Rafael Espinoza, but put him in there with the Josh Warrington, where you can still get a huge, amazing fight. Let's do it. Ben Marksby beating Sean Kelly. I wasn't mad at it. I had to draw myself, but not at all mad at him getting that decision. I thought it was a good fight, very competitive. You had Kieran Malloy. He got a 3rd round knockout. He's a really good fighter. Obviously, he was meant to headline a show for GBM this summer in like a stadium, and that didn't end up happening. Very suspicious circumstances. They just straight up canceled it and moved it somewhere else and took him off the card. But he's a really big prospect in Ireland. Had a huge crowd. Charlie Edwards had a dominant win over Salvador Juarez. His return to the ring. Won every round, but, was pretty boring. But that's what you come to expect with Edwards. He's back down to 115. Let's see if he can get a good fight. One of the commentators was trying to talk about him fighting Bam Rodriguez, and then Barry Jones shut it down. I was like, no, dude. Like, come on. Yeah, that's just not going to end well for him. What else? And then you also had Dan Toward on the prelims. Go 8 rounds with Khalid Enichat. Very close competitive fight there. And I thought that Toward was a little bit lucky to get out of the 8th round. He seemed like he was starting to get hurt. He did make it out safe and sound, but he's already been stopped once as a pro, and it can happen again. And I wouldn't be surprised if it does it someday. But that was an interesting fight. He still won it, of course, but it was close. Speaking of a Wasserman prospect getting knocked out, Tom Welland got upset like crazy against Kevin Herrera this weekend, just yesterday. Get into the 4th round. I think the stoppage was in. I'll double check that. Yeah, 4th round. Tom Welland is dominating the fight. He's already dropped him big time. But he's also taken a few shots. And I tweeted right before. I was like, okay, Tom Welland's good, but don't get too aggressive. Don't get too careless. Like, Herrera can still punch a bit. So, just take your time. And he doesn't do that. And he's rushing for it. And he gets caught with a huge shot that knocks him out. He's not unconscious, but just doesn't know where he is, can't get up. And it was an interesting situation where, obviously, they take the camera to the back of the arena. They're not really showing you what's happening. Welland is down for a few minutes. He finally does get back up, but they're still not reading the decision for about 10 minutes. And you can hear this sobbing. And I thought it was somebody from his family. And you find out that it's him. And he's in the corner in front of 2,000 people in this arena on TV just sobbing because he can't believe, he just, he feels so embarrassed and his career's over. And it's not. But I get it. He's a young kid. And I was watching, and I was like, they need to get him off stage. They need to get him off this ring, out of this ring, get him backstage. Because this is a moment that I'm sure a lot of guys go through. I'm sure Dan Toward had a moment like that when he lost. But he didn't have to do it in front of all these people. And I think that obviously he's hurt. You don't want to get him to jump up and run out of the cage and run out of the ring, but I think they could have moved him out of there a little bit quicker because we, as fans and as spectators, did not need to see that. We didn't need to see him at his lowest like that. And I feel terrible for him. And you even saw Herrera, who thought he was hurt for a while and then just felt bad. Like, he was emotional. He was crying because he wanted to celebrate this win. There was a huge win for him, a huge upset. But he's like, dude, like, this kid, you know? So it just shows you how heartbreaking of a game boxing can be, and that's not a game. So that was crazy. Both Wassermans, two blue chip prospects, I guess you could say, no longer. Both have been knocked out this year. And again, they can still come back, but it just shows you, you know, like, you're not – it can happen to anyone. And so, and yeah, that was tough to see because I'm a big fan of Wellens. But that was a really good card from Top Tier, I think. Co-main event, Josh Babb beating Harvey Smith in a really, really great 8-round fight. James Osborne had a first-round TKO over Alex Branson Cole. One big shot does the trick. He's now mandatory for Troy Williamson, so that's a really fun fight, I think. Two big punching guys. That'll be a lot of fun. Frankie Story stopped Zach Fee. You know, Zach Fee is an undefeated prospect. Somebody I thought that it was a little bit interesting. They were already stepping him up to 10 rounders and fighting this good of opponent when I thought he was lucky to get a win over Darwin Martinez this year. So I still picked him to win this fight because I know how good he's supposed to be. And I thought that other fight was just, a rough night. But no, I mean, he didn't win a round. And it wasn't like he got hurt. It was just that his corner just took him out of the fight because they were like, dude, like, you're just not winning. You don't have a chance to win this fight. Let's not let you take 9 more minutes getting beat up. Let's take you out of here. Muzamiro Kakande, Kevin Revell, another great fight. Kakande stops him in the 9th round, huge stoppage. Brilliant performance from him. He's actually the guy who delivered that knockout over Dan Toward. So he's having a good year. You had Yasser Alhane with a 6th round knockout. He's a former English champion, or actually current. He just had a little run out here, but he's going to come back and defend on their next show in November. So good show from Top Tier. It was started, I do want to mention, by Toomey Phillips beating Yomer Medrano. And from what I saw that fight, Toomey Phillips did not win it. That was a big robbery. So, I just wanted to mention that. And then lastly, we had the Pro Box TV event on Friday night where Rene Tejas-Garon pulled off a huge upset over Jordan White. Really was dominant just from like the first or second round. I only gave Jordan White, I think, 1 round of that. No, I gave him 2 rounds, I believe. He did get a knockdown as well. Or was it a knockdown or was it a point deduction? No. It was a knockdown in round 5. And it was a really, really good fight. And again, Rene Tejas-Garon is a guy who's given Floyd Schofield and Rocky Hernandez tough fights, and he's not going to go anywhere. And again, when this fight was announced, I was intrigued. I was like, oh, that's a really good fight because I didn't think that Jordan White was on the level of Schofield or Rocky Hernandez. I mean, both those guys are about to get world title shots. So I thought this was a little bit of interesting matchmaking, and I think that it was not great matchmaking because we saw what happened. But, dude, it was a good fight still. And, again, that's why I like Pro Box TV, good matchmaking. Co-main event, Suleiman Sagawa stopping Brian Acosta. Great fight there. Sagawa looked really, really good, had a phenomenal 7th-round finish in the fight. Jonathan Cardoso got upset after, again, another very good competitive fight, one that he was actually leading in on my card. And then in the 9th round, he gets caught with a huge shot and finished by Luis Torres Valenzuela. So some upsets, some big knockouts on that card. Really, really fun fights. I do want to say that I didn't love their setup for it. They had all these top prospects like Scooter Davis and Jordan Roach, the younger brother, on the prelims, and they only had the prelims on their Instagram Live. Just not a great way to watch the fight, and it was not a good stream. It kept on cutting out, so hopefully in the future they change that, but all those guys got great knockouts. Elijah Flores, Benjamin Johnson both had big knockouts. Francois Scarborough Jr. also had a good decision to win, so it was a good show over in Washington, D.C., and I'm looking forward to their next one on the 27th of September because they got some really heavy hitters on that, like Nicolas Flaz, against Peter Dobson, Najee Lopez on there as well, Darrell Valsain, so that should be a good one. But that's all the events that we had this weekend, and we're going to get into some news, but also want to mention the fights that we have coming up this week. We've got 2 fight week cards for Canelo Crawford, the first of which is going to be the open workouts, and this is something we've seen Ring Magazine do a couple of times, haven't done it in a while, but I think this is definitely probably their best one yet, or at least since the LA one. Beck Nurmagomedov is stepping up to 10 rounds to take on Steven Sumter, who's 11-1. Nurmagomedov is 14-0 with 12 knockouts. Really, really good prospect. out of Kazakhstan. This is his first 10 rounder, so he's always in good fights, and so I'm really happy he's going to get spotlighted on this card. You've also got Brian Leone on this card, who I think he's with Eddie Reynoso. He's stepping up to 8 rounds. He's got a lot of knockouts on his record. Mikey Talon, who is a British fighter that Turkey said he wanted on the card, he'll be on there. Yoandi Toyrak is on there as well, I'm not too familiar with, and Abdullah Darkazanli, who I believe his first fight, actually, if I'm correct, yeah, his first fight was on the open workouts for Canelo Crawford, or sorry, not Canelo Crawford, that's what's this weekend, Fury Usyk 2, and he's a Saudi. So there you go. Turkey highlighting another Saudi Arabian prospect on this show. But then they've also got a bigger card on Thursday night. The open workouts are on Wednesday. Thursday night at the Fontainebleau, you're going to get Anthony Olasquaga versus Juan Carlos Camacho. Now, this is a genuine world championship. It's for the WBO flyweight championship, and I really, really like that we're getting a title fight during fight week. Like, that really makes it feel special because this fight could go on the main card on Saturday night. And yeah, so it's going to make this feel really special. This is a really good fight, too. I do think Anthony Olasquaga wins. I think he needs the win. Obviously, his last fight, he really did not impress. He beat Hiroto Kyoguchi, but I don't know if he won that fight. I don't think many people do think that he won it. He won it by unanimous decision on the night, but it was a little bit of a robbery. Very, very close fight. Really good fight, but not one that I think that he necessarily deserved to get the nod in. Scorecards were a bit sketch, but I think he beats Camacho on this week's card. And and then hopefully he can get into a unification or another good fight. But I'm excited for this fight in itself. It's going to be good. You got Jalil Hackett coming back for his first time since he lost against Elijah Vines, who's 8-0, undefeated. Justin Valoria, he's taking on Josephat Ortiz, who's 13-1. Good matchups here, dude. Jamar Talley's back in action. Emiliano Alvarado's back in action. He's taking on Juan Garcia, who's also undefeated. So some really, really well-matched fights with these prospects. Ring Magazine putting a ton of prospects on this weekend, or week, I should say. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to these events, and I like that we're going to get to see fight week cards, and I hope this is a recurring thing with the Underdog, this new show they're doing in the open workouts. It just makes the fight we feel so much more big and special. We did get the official announcement of the Jake Paul Tank Davis press conferences September 17th. That Wednesday, we're going to have one in New York City. And then 24 hours here in Atlanta, Georgia, you're going to get the second one on September 18th. I'm going to try and be there in attendance for it. I'm going to rush there as soon as I can and try and get to the arena, and hopefully I'll get to attend that press conference. It's free and open to the public. Just going to be a really fun fight, and I'm sure the pressers are going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a crazy press tour. Tank posted today him sparring with a heavyweight, getting ready to fight somebody way bigger than him. So that's going to be a lot of fun when that fight does eventually roll around, and curious who's going to win that because it's a very odd event to be happening. We got some updates with the UFC. Dana White says the White House is a done deal. We're ready to go. It's apparently set for June 2026. The plan was July 4th. Some logistical issues got in the way, so it doesn't really matter if it's on that date. But June 2026, the fight night is going to be on the south lawn of the White House with the presser and weigh-in on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. So I think that's a really, really cool spot. This really feels like a Saudi Arabia production with all these like fun, different, unique things that we're doing. But that'll be kind of cool. To have something on the Lincoln Memorial. And then there's going to be giant screens outside is what Dana's saying, which I'm curious how that's going to look. Probably just, similar to how in the arena you'll have big screens. There's going to be a fireworks and light shows during the event. Obviously, it's going to be around July 4th, and that's a big thing is, the fireworks. So, okay. Fighters are going to be warming up in the White House, which is just crazy to think. But yeah, so it looks like it's actually going to happen. John Jones, I just saw that he said he's training 5 days a week and he's ready for it, in hopes that they'll let him fight on the card. He's not going to fight on the card, and I really don't care if John Jones fights again just because, I don't know, man, I'm just tired of his shtick. But yeah, Shakur Tiafimo is being touted to take place either at El Awal Park, that's a stadium in Saudi Arabia, or in New York. And if they're going to do it in New York, they would ideally like to do it in the Barclays Center, which has played host to a lot of big fights, especially in those weight divisions recently. You had Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia there, Gervonta Davis, Lamont Roach. So they were to get Shakur Stevenson, Teofimo Lopez. It'll fit in quite well. I obviously much prefer them doing the fight in New York than I do in Saudi Arabia. I think that makes a lot of sense too. Shakur's from Newark and Tio's from Brooklyn. That makes so much sense to do the fight in Brooklyn, especially when you have Shakur, who's got fans that'll come over as well. So I think that makes all the sense in the world to have that fight right there. and it just makes a lot of sense. Obviously, if they are going to do it in Saudi Arabia, I do think it's kind of a unique idea to do it somewhere a little bit different. Looks like it's kind of like a soccer stadium, and it's a 25,000 seat capacity. But I also know that it's in Saudi Arabia. They're not going to sell that out at all, so don't know why you need to do that. But the co-main event is apparently going to be, if it happens, Khamzat Shiraz versus the winner of Christian and Billy and Lester Martinez, which is a phenomenal, phenomenal fight. I would love to see him fight the winner of that. We also know that the plan that Turkey has with Canelo, should he win on Saturday, is to not come back in May, but to fight in February, and I would believe that fight would be against Khamzat Shiraz. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, but if it's not Shiraz getting Canelo next, I would love to see him fight the winner of Billy Martinez, who are going to fight on Saturday on the Canelo Crawford card. Murtazalia versus Kelly is looking to be set for December 13th in Manchester. Also on December 13th in Manchester is Moses Atauma's return. Bakram did respond to this and say, "Oh, don't believe anything until we announce it." But if this is true, I would not be surprised if it's on the same card. Obviously, there's not going to be two events in the same city on the same day, so it makes sense to put them on the same card. Promotionally, I don't get it. Wasserman versus PBC, I believe that's who Bakram's with, on a Queensberry card. We do know that the fight was being looked at in the UK, but they needed a bigger broadcaster. I'm guessing Wasserman and Channel 5 don't have the budget to put on a world title fight like that, and that's kind of what the main issue was there. They obviously did a great show in Dublin. They had it sold out, but I don't know. Maybe they just don't want to put that fight on, or Channel 5 isn't willing to do it, so they were looking for someone else, looking for the zone, and Frank's just like, I'll take that fight and put it on a card. Absolutely. So, hey, if that's on the same card as Moses Atauma, that'd be pretty great, but we'll see. Ilya Topuria says that he would KO Terrence Crawford in a boxing match. Listen, I love Ilya, and I really do think he's something special inside the UFC, but that's exactly what he is. He's special in the UFC. I know that they all want to come over and get the boxing money, and maybe he can do that someday. And I do think he's one of the best boxers in the UFC. But Terrence Crawford is the best boxer in the world, maybe. And it definitely is around Ilya's weight. So there's no way that Ilya would win a round, maybe even, against Terrence Crawford today. Like, it's just silly talk. So that's my 2 cents on that. PFL have signed Brian Battle. That's a really good signing for him to pick him up. Obviously got dropped by the UFC. If he can keep the weight, they've signed him as a middleweight, which means they're counting on him to make that weight. So hopefully he can, but really good of them to snatch him up as soon as it happened, as soon as he gets cut. He obviously did just have the fight on Dirty Boxing, but it seems like he doesn't want to stay there. He wants to move and keep on fighting in MMA, which I think is good, and I think that he'll honestly have a much higher trajectory in the PFL in terms of winning a belt or something like that. So that's a really good pickup for them. Bash Promotions has won the purse bid for Badu Jack versus Noel McCallion. They outbid Don King with a $301,000 purse, so not a big purse bid at all because it's just not a big fight. I've never heard of Bash Promotions. Apparently they're Badu Jack's promoter, but hey, you know what? Good for them. And a little bit disappointed we're not just going to get that fight on like a Saudi card. But I'd love to see it. I actually am not mad at that getting a rematch because I thought it was a phenomenal fight the first time around. And it's one that I don't know if I had Jack winning it. I think it could have been a draw, and I think McCanlian could have won it. So I'm not really mad at that fight happening again. Danny Garcia has announced his final fight at Barclays Center for October 18th against Daniel Gonzalez. It's going to be at super welterweight. Not really familiar with Gonzalez at all, but he's going to do the Barclays Center. So hopefully it'll be a big event, and they'll have a good card, and it'll be on DAZN or something like that. But I do know that he's promoting it, so I'm just hoping that there's going to be a way to watch it because I am a little bit intrigued at how big of a crowd they do and if it ends up being a good fight. Apparently, Eric Bazzini and Stephen Butler has been rebooked for a third time for November 13th in Montreal. That's a really good fight. Obviously, the first time they tried to do it, I think it was Butler that got injured. Maybe it was Bazzini, and I know the second time was Bazzini who got injured. So they just haven't been able to get it done. It was meant to happen in March. Then it was meant to happen in April or in June, and now it's looking set for November. That's going to be the same week as Jake Tank, the same week as Eubank Ben, same week as JDM Islam. It's going to be a phenomenal week for combat sports. But, this is a really good fight for either Tiger to make in Canada, and I'm very much down for it. We're also hearing that Adrian Broner versus Lydell Rhodes has been officially announced for November 8th. Adrian Broner is so washed. If you've seen this fight poster, it looks like a kindergartner made it. I hope he beats Lydell Rhodes, but he's just got to retire. And it's crazy how big his fall off was. But I don't know, man. I really don't even care that much. But we'll see. Honestly, he could fight Saul Poppy. Saul Poppy apparently really wants to fight him because he's a big fan of him. that's actually, I think, the level Adrian Broner could be at now. I think he probably beat Sal Poppy, especially after last weekend, but I don't know, dude. I don't know. This is just kind of weird. And then lastly, another kind of washed thing. Luis Ortiz is returning this weekend. Next weekend on September 19th on Friday at the Career Boreal show. He's going to be fighting Philip Penson, who is 8-4-3. So very much a run out, try and get a knockout, prove he still got it. He's like 46 or something. I don't get it why these fighters, both him and Broner, can't just be like, I'm just going to retire. Like, I've made my money. And maybe, hey, you know what, maybe this is something where they didn't spend their money well and they still need some. But there's no way you can still think you're going to win a world title, especially when you're fighting this level of competition. But I don't know, man. That's all I've got for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed. Next episode's probably going to come out on Friday, where we'll preview a huge weekend in combat sports, obviously spearheaded by the global, massive, gargantuan Canelo Crawford spectacle fight that's going to be, and I can't wait for it. I'll give you my final prediction then, but until then, have a good week. Enjoy these Ring Magazine Fight Week. It's going to be epic. We got 2 cards this week, and yeah, so have fun, have a good week, and I'll see you on Friday. Thank you all so much for listening, and peace out.